Thanks for joining me here on our online studio for a class on the hips, hip fluency, hip mobility, trying to open up the hips, both outer hips, which are the toughest, most challenging. There's for most people are the stiffest, less mobile. So we'll probably spend most of the time in the class working on the outer hips, but also the front of the hips, the hip flexors, working on those as well. So hips we use a lot in our daily life, forward motion, whether we're running or biking or swimming or just walking around, whether we're doing a fitness walk or just walking around the house. Big amounts of force are generated at the hips to help propel us forward. So, little wonder they get stiff and sore and overused and wear out sometimes, as I can attest to, because I have a new hip, fairly new hip, had a hip replacement. Joints just wear out, no matter how careful you are, how much you exercise, stress, do low impact activities. But we're going to work on some stuff in this class to hopefully strengthen them and help prevent those types of incidences. So just really briefly, one more thing. There are three major ways, three major types of movement of the hips. First is flexion extension. And that's just basically moving forward and back. And that's a lot where the hip flexors come into play. Next is adduction, abductions, where they kind of move side to side and cross the body, get a little more into the inner thighs as well, adductors, but adduct, abduct. And then the last is internal and external rotation of that hip joint. The external rotation, again, is a little bigger movement, and that's where some of us struggle, or that's where, with many people, the hips are a little stiff and resistant. So we're going to work into that a little at a time. And come join me now on your mat. And we're going to start laying down. We're going to start with some reclined hip openers, just taking it really gently. So the hips, as mentioned, are kind of stubborn parts of the body. They tend to take a very long time, a lot of patience to open up. You may get frustrated because you do these exercises for 2 months, 3 months, and see little to no progress, but it does happen. You may not even notice it, maybe so subtle, so small, but it is helping, and it's helping to strengthen the hips at the same time. All right, so laying on the back, start with both knees bent, and you're gonna hug the right knee into the chest. Give it a little easy hug in. And then flex the right foot, lift the foot up, take hold of the outer edge of that right foot with the right hand. The the forearm is inside the knee, and the hand is holding on to the outer edge, the pinky edge of the foot. This is half happy baby. It's a really good, gentle, basic hip opener to begin this class with. So bend the knee, ground the shoulder blades, chest, gazes up towards the sky. And all we're doing just for a couple more moments here is gently easing that right knee down towards the right shoulder to very gradually and gently open up the hip. Take one more breath. All right, then let go of that right foot. Bring it back down to the ground. Hug the left knee in now. Just give it a little hug in. Try to connect the thigh to the chest. And then flex the left foot, lift it up. Okay, so you sweep the arm, the forearm, inside the knee to take hold of the outer edge of the foot. And if you're really struggling to get a hold of that outer edge of the foot, then bring the hand a little further up the leg and maybe hold the ankle or the very, very low part of the shin. Right? Either way, whatever you're holding, flex the foot deeply, ground the shoulder blade so the back is flat. You're not rolling over, and you're gently easing that knee down towards the shoulder. Open up that hip just a little bit. Take one more breath here. All right, now I want you to keep the left leg where it is, and you're going to bring the right leg up to join it. So now we take full happy baby pose. You can stay still, or you can start to kind of rock a little side to side. Take one more breath. All right, release both feet and bring both feet down to the mat. They should be about hips distance apart. You're going to hug the right knee back to the chest. This time you're going to start to turn open that right knee so it's a little more parallel to the front of the mat. Flex the foot, hold on to the foot with the left hand, and then you're going to support the right knee with the right hand. And you're just going to kind of rock that knee and shin side to side a little bit to gently open up the hip. We'll do a slightly deeper version of this pose. This next pose we're going to do, which is figure 4, from a seat towards the end of the class. Okay, one more breath. All right, now keep the knee and shin parallel, and you're gently going to drop that right ankle outside the left knee for figure 4 pose. Take the right hand again to the right knee and really small, gentle, subtle press away. And this is a nice hip opener to do any time. So if all you have time for is, a couple of hip openers, do this one. This one's a really good one, reclined figure 4. One more breath, and then uncross the right ankle, bring the foot back down to the ground. Take the left knee in, and again, now we kind of start to turn it. Just start to open the left knee off to the side. Just kind of, again, moving it a little side to side. This just is a nice little easy way to invite some movement, mobility into that hip. More breath. All right, now left ankle, outside right knee. Keep the left foot flexed. Take left hand to left knee and just really small, gentle press away of that knee to this reclined figure 4 pose. Take one more breath and then uncross the ankle. Hug both knees in, wrap the arms around the shins, and just for a moment, rock a little right and left, side to side. And then bring yourself up and find your way to all fours, hands and knees, to tabletop position. Set this up properly so the hands are about shoulder distance, the shoulders guide forward so they're right over the wrist, and the hips are right over the knees. And we're going to move a little into the spine now, warm the back up, because again, when we have these classes for cat-cow, you round the spine, tuck the chin, hollow out the belly, and then open the heart forward, broaden across the collarbones. So when we have these practices, these classes that are really heavily focused, say today on the hips, but sometimes it might be the core or the shoulders or the low back. Very infrequently is the entire class, 100% of the class, going to be just on that area. Good part of it, most of it, but we sprinkle in, we weave in some other poses as well, like this cat-cow to warm up the spine. Get one more here, round in a little deeper. Exhale, open up a little wider. Come to a neutral position, so gaze down between the hands. You're going to bump the hips to the left, and then you're going to turn to the right and walk the hands off towards the upper right corner of the mat. So just really press that left hip out. You should feel a really nice stretch going on there in that outer hip, and a little bit into the glute as well. One more breath, come back forward. Both hands down, gaze between the hands. Bump the right hip to the right. And then turn a little to the left and walk the hands off the mat to the left. And keep bumping that right hip out, stretching it. Another nice pose to kind of gradually get some movement going, some stretch going there. All right, come back to all fours. Let's go back to the right side. And you're going to lift that knee up and start to circle it around to the side, circling around to the right. And then go the other way and circle it inwards towards the left. Drop the knee down and come into the left side. Lift the left knee up. Just start those easy circles. And this is true, these circular motions of the knee and hip. We'll be doing these a couple of different ways, from downward dog and from standing as well. Take it inward, circling it in towards the right knee. One more breath. All right, drop the knee down. Now you're going to circle both hips. Let's start to the left. They're just big circles. You're almost sinking the sit bones all the way back towards the heels, not quite. We're just really getting some good blood flow, movement, energy flowing through those hips, and now circle them to the right. Big hip circles here. Just to get, again, that movement, mobility going here. One more. All right, come back up. Let's extend the left leg out. We'll start there on the side. So ground the foot right out from the hip, leg is straight, gaze forward, and we're going to rock forward and back here a few times. So that's going to start to introduce some movement into the hip flexors and into the adductors, the inner thighs. One more breath. All right, the next time you rock back, stay there. You're going to walk the hands forward and you're going to start to brow, drop the forehead and chest down towards the ground. So this is a version of child's pose here, but with that left leg straight out. So we work here a little more. We add in that hip. One more breath. All right, lift the chest, walk the hands back in, come back onto the left foot, and then you're going to step the right foot out to the side. Ground the foot, press down a little more through the pinky edge of the foot, hands still shoulder distance, but maybe walk them out a little further away from you. And again, we just start with that easy rocking forward and back, working into that right front hip, that hip flexor, a little at a time. It can get very tight, those hip flexors. So this in particular is a nice little easy exercise to gently open them up. All right, sink the hips a little further back, crawl the hands a little more forward. Maybe the forehead comes down to the mat. Keep grounding through that right foot though, to activate that outer hip and stretch out that inner thigh. One more breath. Slowly bring yourself back up. Come on to all fours. From here, we tuck the toes, step the feet back, lift the knees. So we're in a high plank pose. And then we take the hips up to downward facing dog. And take a couple breaths here. Maybe bend one knee, straighten the other, give the calves a little stretch. You can lift high into the balls of both feet and then reach the heels down. Know in this pose, there's not going to be a lot of downward dogs in this particular class. Not too many here and there, a few, but not a lot. But anytime you're in this pose, feel free to bend the knees a little or a lot. Try to lengthen. A lot of students shorten their dogs a little too much. So you want to ideally, if you can visualize this in your head, create this big upside down V shape with the body. So the hips reach up towards the sky and the chest melts down towards the ground and you're looking back at the tips of your toes. All right, from here, we're going to take the right leg up to the sky into three-leg dog. And this is going to simulate what we did on our all fours, hands and knees a moment ago. You're going to bend that right knee and open the hip. We're going to add in a little turn to the right. So we're looking under the right arm. And again, we start to circle that right knee and hip around to the right. So it's a bigger movement here. We have a little more space. So you may feel a little more movement, mobility in that hip. And then you're going to take it the other way. Circle inward towards the left. So we get the whole hip joint warmed up and mobile. And then take that right leg back to the sky to three-leg dog and carefully lower it back down to the ground to downward facing dog. All right, taking the left leg up now. Bend the knee, open the hip, flex the foot. Add in that little half turn to look under the left arm and then start left side. Circling the knee and hip. So this also gets into the inner knee, inner thigh, a little bit into the groin, and then circle the opposite way. So again, we get the whole hip rotation there, whole range of motion. Take that straight leg back up and then bring it back down to downward facing dog. Take a deep breath in through the nose. And then open the mouth and exhale. All right, let's take the right leg back to three-leg dog. This time you're going to step it forward. You're going to drop onto the left knee, walk the hands in, and bring yourself up into a low lunge pose. So just take a moment here and let's do this. Let's just briefly rest both hands on the right knee or thigh and get this posture. Ground more through the right foot. Lift up a little taller to start with from the low back. Now, we're going to use this low lunge to get a little more into that front of the hip, that hip flexor. You're going to bring the hands to the outer hips, so the heels of the palms kind of press right into those outer hips, and the fingertips stretch down towards the ground. And you're going to use that almost like you're trying to stretch the skin of those outer hips down. And as you do that, you should be able to sink a little deeper into that right knee. Get a little more into that low lunge. Feel how that opens up, stretches out the front of that left hip, that deep hip flexor into the psoas muscle. One more breath from here. Release the hands down to the mat. You're going to tuck the left toes, lift the left knee up, step the right foot to plank, and then lift the hips back up to downward facing dog. Take the left leg to the sky to three-leg dog. And then with your exhale, big step forward. As you drop into the right knee, walk the hands in. And first, again, we're just going to start here, getting this set up so we're nice and grounded in this low lunge. Press down a little more through the left foot. Lift up a little taller through the crown of the head. The hands, for the moment, are just resting lightly on that left knee or thigh. Now, again, bring the hands to the outer hips. Heels of palms press in. We use it to kind of stretch the skin down and maybe sink a little deeper into that left knee. Maybe the knee might even be a little bit past that left ankle or even the toes, depending on how low you can sink. We want to get a nice big opening, a nice deep stretch in that right hip flexor. One more breath. All right, again, hands down. Step to plank pose from here. Lift the hips back up to downward facing dog. Take the right leg to the sky, the three-leg dog. Step it forward this time to a runner's lunge pose. So the hands remain down. You can have your hands on yoga blocks. The left toes are tucked. The heel is lifted. That left leg is super powerful. We gaze forward, kind of like we did on all fours, hands and knees a bit ago. We're going to rock forward and back just a little bit, reaching the chest past the top of the mat and then pushing back through the heel as we rock back. Another move to open up, introduce mobility in that left hip flexor. All right, pause. Keep the left hand on the mat or block. And just for a breath or two, take the right arm to the sky. Find a simple twist. Maybe look up towards the right hand. One more breath here in the twist. And then unwind both hands down. Step the right foot back to plank. Lift the hips back up to downward dog. Taking that to the left side now, we float the left leg to the sky. Exhale, step it through. Runner's lunge, hands down. You could like tent onto the fingers. Have a block under both hands if you're straining to reach the ground. Gaze forward. Activate that back leg, that right leg, as we start just that little rocking to and fro. It's not a big movement, but it's just enough. Again, to introduce some mobility. You get tight hip flexors, tight psoas. That can just start escalating into a lot of other problems, restricting our movements. Keep the right hand on the mat or block. Peel the chest open as you twist just for another breath to your left. And then bring both hands down. This time, you're going to take a big step or multiple steps to the top of your mat. Press the palms to the shins and look forward, flat back. And then as you exhale, come briefly, we're not going to hold this on, maybe 3 or 4 breaths into a standing forward fold. Knees can be bent if the hamstrings feel tight, backs of the knees feel tight. Let the spine hang down, though, if you can. Really nice pose to decompress, kind of stretch out, flush out that low back. One more breath. All right, bend the knees a little, bring the hands to the thighs, and slowly bring yourself all the way up to stand. All right, so those knee circles, knee and hip circles, we did them on all fours. We just did them from downward dog, from three-leg dog. Now we're going to do the same motion from standing. It's going to be a bigger motion. We have more space, so we should hopefully have a bigger range of motion. And we're going to alternate sides. So all I'm going to do is lift the right knee up, circle it around. Same with the left. So keep going here. Just these big hip circles. We've already done them. Again, it's just from a different perspective, a different orientation. So you can stay here on your mat and just continue with these a few more rounds. Or if you want a little more active pose, you'd come to one end of your mat and then you would do those hip circles as you rock forward to the top of your mat and then maybe reverse the order and going back and forth. But it's the same thing. It's just either standing still or walking. One more breath. All right, from here, find your way to a wall because the next two poses we're going to do are balancing poses. And you may or may not need the wall. If you have a good steady balance, you're steady on your feet, you don't have problems with balance, as many of us do. And sometimes one side is really strong, but not the other. But be near a wall, just in case you change your mind. We're going to take two different balancing poses, which are also hip openers. The first one is going to be tree, and the one after that is going to be eagle pose. So let's start with tree. Start standing on the left foot. If you're using the wall, you can push your butt against the wall back, or you can even turn to the side and just like maybe put an elbow or the outer hip against the wall. Up the right knee up to the chest. So before we open into tree pose, just kind of feel how just hugging that knee and standing up tall starts to lengthen and activate and stretch out that left hip flexor. Now take hold of the right foot or ankle, and you're going to place the sole of the foot ideally against the inner thigh of the left leg. If that's too much, like you feel, oh, that's too tight on my knees, too tight on my hip, you could bring that foot further down, press it against the inner shin. You could even go one step further down, come onto the ball of the right foot. You would press the heel then into the ankle. This is what we call kickstand variation. And then either keep the hands at the hips, you can bring the hands to the heart in a more traditional prayer position, lengthen up through the spine. So balancing pose, which is good to work on the balance, strengthening especially the standing leg, the left leg, but we're getting that nice hip opener here going on that right side and into the knee and into the inner thigh as well. Take one more breath on this side and then bring the right knee back to the chest and carefully lower it back down to the ground. Shift the weight now to the right leg. Take the left knee up to the chest. And again, we're just pausing here, standing up tall, maybe using the wall or not. Feel the right hip flexor start to lengthen and extend. And then take hold of the left foot or ankle. Place that foot somewhere on the right leg, up higher, inner thigh, a little lower, shin, or lower still. You do that kickstand variation that I demonstrated on side one. Hands can stay at the hips, at the heart. Lift up tall through the spine. Maybe if you can't open, you could take the left hand to, this is another little thing, take the left hand to the inner left knee and very gently press the knee away. One more breath, bring the left knee back to the chest, lower the leg down, give both legs just a brief little shake out because we're going to come back in to our second balancing pose, which is also a deeper hip opener, and we'll also add the shoulders in. So we'll get a shoulder opener as well. This is eagle pose. All right, so we start this. You can be near the wall. Bend the knees a little, not as full deep as we're coming into a deep squat, but a little short bend, little slight bend. Shift the weight to the left foot again, and you're going to wrap the right knee around the left. Maybe one wrap or maybe two. Maybe you can curl the toes around the ankle. Alternatively, you could do a similar pose, similar movement that we did in tree, where you come onto the ball of the right foot and lift the heel for kickstand variation in eagle. Now, right leg is over. We're going to take the left arm over the right. We're going to wrap up the arms, press the palms together, reach the fingers towards the sky, lift the chest, and see if you can start to bend the knees and sink down a little more. So you want to squeeze the inner thighs, inner knees together. You want to squeeze the arms together, maybe lift the fingers up a little more. Maybe if it's there, last couple breaths, bend a little deeper into the knees, sink down. Big hip opener, big shoulder opener as well. For one more breath. Unwind the arms first, then unwind the legs. Again, just kind of give both legs a little shake out before we come into side two. So start, bend the knees a little half squat. All right, shift the weight to the right leg. You're going to take the left leg around, left knee around the right, maybe a single or double wrap, or again, you can come onto the ball of that foot, left heel lifts for kickstand. Arms are opposite, so now right arm over, left arm under. Wrap up the arms, bind them up, press the palms together, stretch all 10 fingers towards the sky, gaze out in front of you. Don't round the spine. Maybe as we continue here, a few more breaths, you can bend a little deeper into the knees, sink down a little more, lift the chest a little more. Feel how this opens up the hips and the shoulders at the same time. One more breath, unwind the arms, unwind the legs. Once again, give everything a little shake. All right, next pose, we're going to work on all three of those movements that I mentioned earlier. the flexion and extension, the adduction, abduction, and a little bit that internal, external rotation. You can do this with or without a block. If you have a block, it's just going to make the exercise a little more, not intense, but a little more complete. Let's use that word for lack of a better phrase. But you could do this without a block. If you have a block, bring it flat setting, and we're going to stand on that block on the left foot. So you could be near a wall, a desk table, have your hand on something because you will be balancing on one foot and standing on the block. So stand on with the left foot. And before we do anything, just kind of pause, stand up tall. The right leg here, so the hips are obviously not symmetrical because the left hip is higher, you're standing on a block, and the right leg is dangling down. Again, you could do this without standing on a block, but then the hips would be a little more symmetrical, and that's okay, no problem with that. First, we're going to start that forward and back motion. Little swings, not a big swing. It's just kind of, again, like the hand of a clock or a pendulum, just kind of going forward and back. Flex the foot. Stand up tall so you don't want to lean forward or lean back or tip to the side. And then you can start making those swings a little bit bigger, not too big. Keep it controlled. And this is front and back, forward and back motion, flexion and extension. This is sort of mimicking what we do when we walk and run. One more. All right, now pause, flex the foot. Now you're going to move it out to the side and back in. So here's that abduction, adduction movement, outer hip, inner thigh. Once again, you want to keep the spine super tall, not leaning over to the right, to the left rather this time. That's why hand on wall or on a chair can help keep us really balanced here. Make the movement small. One more breath. All right, pause. Last part on this side. You're going to point the right toes now, and then you're going to cross it in front of you at an angle, side to side. So we get a little bit internally rotation of that inner thigh. One more. All right, step off the block and just turn or move the block, and you're going to step on now with the right foot. Maybe right hand on the wall or chair, something for balance. And again, before we do anything, before we start moving, just kind of feel the left leg, flex the foot, just kind of feel how just doing that, just standing on that block or on the floor, start to lengthen and stretches out and opens up that left hip flexor. All right, now, keeping this tall spine, starting with a really small movement, but keeping that left foot flex, we start that rocking, gentle forward and back. Not these big karate kicks. We don't need that. That's not what we're looking for. That gets into more of the hamstring. And this is all we need right now. Just this small swinging motion. If you have tight hip flexors, really good thing to do as often as you can. One more breath. Pause. Flex the foot. And then we move it out to the side and back in. And once again, that is a small movement. The more you bring it out further to the side, the more you're going to lean over to the right. And we don't want to accomplish that at this moment. One more moment, and then pause, point the toes, cross them in front of you. Last part of this, cross them at that diagonal. One more breath. All right, step off your block, move it to the side for now. Probably be using it a little bit later. Actually, keep the block. You could potentially use that for the next pose, potentially, which is going to be a really deep hip opener. This is a squat, a deep squat. And in fact, I'm going to retrieve a second block so I can show you if this is really challenging, which it is if you have super tight hips, what you can do here. If you have one block or two, then you want to stack them first. So make like a little seat for yourself. And then they'll be behind you. Walk the feet a little wider than hips distance. Turn the toes out. And you're going to start to bend the knees and come down into a deep squat. And you may not need the blocks here, but they're there if you want. So you can work into this. You can sit on them. Sit here, hands at heart, or you can drop the arms to the knees or thighs and sit up tall. All right, and then as you're here, staying here a few rounds of breath. This is a really big hip opening pose. really big, and it's also a nice stretch for the inner knees, inner thighs. And you can work into this. Maybe you take one block away and come down a little lower and take a couple breaths there. Maybe you don't need the blocks at all, and you can take them away together, and then you just hold a squat without the blocks for one more breath. All right, bring the hands down to the ground. Slowly straighten the legs. Walk the feet in so the toes are pointing forward. And then just to reset, re-lengthen after that really deep squat, just fold straight down the legs for another breath. All right, from here again, bring the hands to the thighs and bring yourself up. If you were using blocks in that pose, you can put them aside again for now. Come to stand, but face the center of your mat. Be in the middle of your mat. Walk the feet really wide this time. Really, really wide. Turn the toes out. Bend the knees. Bring the hands to the heart in prayer and sink down. Bend the knees. Knees are right over the ankles. Spine is tall. Gaze out in front of you. Give the glutes a little squeeze. This is called goddess pose. So it's a good strengthener for the quads and the knees. It's also getting into the outer hips. And if you pay attention to the glutes, you give the glutes a little squeeze. It's a nice pose. So this is similar to that squat we did, pose before this one, but it's a much wider stance. And of course, we're up higher. One more breath. All right, from here, keep the right knee bent, straighten the left leg. You can bring both hands to that right knee or thigh and kind of sink down a little deeper into this side lunge. So that's again going to kind of stretch out that left leg, the hamstring, the quad, the knee, but it's also a nice hip stretch here. One more breath. All right, shift now. You can keep the hands on the thigh. You could bring them to the ground or a block here for a little more support. Bend the left knee, straighten the right. Taking just a couple more breaths here in this nice deep side lunge pose, which stretches out, elongates lots of things in the lower body, not just the hips. One more breath. All right, now you're going to straighten both legs. Drop the hands down. Turn the toes slightly in. If you can, walk the feet a little bit wider if you're able. Gaze forward first to lengthen the spine. And then as you exhale, come into a deep, wide leg forward fold. So again, if you're struggling to reach the ground because your hamstrings are low back or tight, which is very normal in this pose, you would really benefit from having one or two yoga blocks under your hand, any height. You could go the high height, medium, low height, doesn't matter. But use blocks, use props in any of these poses to assist you. Because again, you don't want to be straining, struggling, working too hard to get into these poses. Because that's, after a while, that's all you think about. And you're counting the seconds until it's done. Take one more breath. All right, look forward. Slowly begin to walk. Step the feet in one at a time or both together. Once again, bend the knees a little. Bring the hands to the thighs. And slowly bring yourself all the way up to stand. All right, walk to the top of the mat. From here, you're going to sweep the arms overhead and join the palms. And then exhale. You're going to fold all the way back down to the ground. You're going to step back to high plank. Hold our breath. And then take the hips up to the sky, arriving back in downward facing dog. Again, not too many of these downward dogs. We have a few more to do, but not as many as in certain classes, especially not if you were doing like a flow class, a general all-around yoga class. We do a lot of downward dogs in those, but not too many in this particular one, focusing again on those hips. One more breath here. All right, you're going to roll forward, drop to the knees, slide the legs straight, and you're going to pop up onto elbows, forearms. So we're entering Sphinx pose, which is a nice gentle back bend. Haven't done a lot. We'll do another back bend towards the end of class into a bridge pose variation. But for now, just pausing here, pressing down through palms and forearms and gently trying to pull the elbows back towards the chest. That helps broaden across the chest. Try to lift it up as best you can from the low back so you're not like sinking in. You're lifting up. All right, from here, we're going to come into half frog. So you're going to keep the right leg long to start and press a little more firmly into the top of that right foot. The left knee, you're going to start to bend the knee and kind of ease it, wiggle it out. So it's right in line with the hip. So the knee is bent, the foot is flexed, left foot is flexed, and you're pressing firmly the big toe edge of that foot into the mat. Turn back forward once you have the hip in line and continue to lift up from the low back as you continue to press that left knee and foot into the mat. Half frog, just half the pose. Full frog, which we're not doing in this particular class, is a really big hip opener and also really big inner thigh groin stretch. One more breath. All right, slowly wiggle that left leg, slide it back to straight. Pause with both legs long for a moment. And then let's do the other side. So keep the left leg long. Start to bend the right knee off to the side, kind of inch it up a little at a time until it's kind of in line, pretty much in line with the hip. Flex the right foot. You're pressing the inner edge of the foot into the mat, continuing to press down through palms and forearms, and always lifting up from the low back. So we're in Sphinx pose here, but with that half frog position on that right hip. One more breath. All right, you're slowly going to slide that right leg back to straight. You're going to lower the forehead down to the mat. You're going to sweep the arms back by the outer hips. You're going to lengthen both legs long. First, we're going to lift just the head and shoulders and float the arms up. So again, spin the palms in so they face towards the outer thighs. And then you're going to lift the legs up and coming into locust pose, a slightly deeper back bend. Point the toes, elongate the legs, try to broaden across the chest and upper back. One more breath, lower all the way down. You're gently going to turn one cheek to the mat. You're going to bend both knees, flex the feet, and just for 2 or 3 breaths, you're going to let the feet just gently drift side to side into a windshield wiper motion, we call this, to give the low back a little release after those 2 back bends. One more breath. All right, release the legs long. Turn the forehead back to the mat. Step the hands in by the outer ribs, bend the elbows. Tuck the toes. Push yourself up to high plank. Hold there a breath. And then lift the hips back up to downward facing dog. Pausing here just for 2 breaths. Breathing in through the nose. Out through the nose. Take one more deep breath in. Another full breath out. And now from here, we're going to come into a really big deep hip opener. This is lizard pose. So you may want to have your block within reach. It may come in handy. You're going to take the right leg to the sky to 3-leg dog. Step it forward. Keep both hands inside the right foot. Drop the left knee down to the mat. Try to scoot the leg back a little. Flatten the foot. And now we're in lizard pose. So options here, because we're going to hold this several breaths. This is a big hip opener. Focusing to start with on opening that left hip flexor. That's the primary focus here. But we'll have options to get a little more into that right outer hip as well. So you can remain here on the hands, looking forward. You can start to bow the chest down towards the ground. You could get your block, again, any height. You can have the hands on the block. If you're straining to reach the ground, you want to go a little deeper. You kind of come onto the forearms, elbows, forearms. You prop those on the block or the mat. Now, one more step if you want. You can roll onto the pinky edge of that right foot. And that's going to let that right knee open to the side a little more. And that's going to get a little more into that outer right hip as well as that inner right thigh and inner knee. And you gently take the right, say, forearm or palm to that right inner knee and gently, really gently press the knee away. And that's going to coax. So hips, you want to coax them open, not force them open. They're small, subtle, gentle movements. 2 more breaths here. Whatever spot you've landed in lizard. One more breath. All right, if you roll to the outer edge of that right foot, please ground the foot. Come back onto the hands. Left toes tuck, left knee rises. You step the right foot to plank. Take the hips back up to downward facing dog. And then doing lizard on side 2 on the left side. You take the left leg to the sky. With an exhale, step it through. Hands to the inside of the left foot, drop into the right knee. Take time to set this up. So scoot that right leg back as much as you can. Flatten the foot, press it in, stretch it out, lengthen. You can stay right here the entire time. Don't go any deeper. Maybe keep again, chest open, look forward, or start to bow down. Get a block under the hands. Again, if you're straining here, maybe one forearm comes down, maybe two, use a block under the forearms because this is a much deeper stretch if you're lowering down. Last part, if you want, you roll to the outer edge of that left foot. Take, say, left elbow, palm form. Super gentle press out of that left inner knee. 3 more breaths in lizard. Whatever stage you're at, they're all good stages. They're all great hip openers, very effective hip opening poses, but you don't want to go too deep. One more breath. Slowly come back up onto the hands. Right toes tuck, right knee lift. Step the left foot to meet the right and plank. Back up to downward dog. Last one. Last downward dog of this particular class. Just for another breath. And then roll forward. Drop to the knees and come have a seat. So you won't need any props for this next pose, but have a block. And if you keep a folded blanket or firm cushion nearby, have that in hand with a couple poses, 2 or 3 poses after this one. For this, we're going to come into a seated figure 4 position. So that was one of the first poses we did on the back, reclined figure 4. We're going to repeat that, but from a seat, which may feel like a deeper hip opener or a more effective hip opener, or maybe not. Maybe it feels about the same. Have the feet hips distance, keep the chest open, and we're going to enter this from elbows form. And you'll have the option to stay there if that feels like enough, or go another step further. You're going to float the right foot up. You could use the hand to help. And like we did on our back earlier, cross the right ankle outside the left knee, flex the foot, begin to open that knee and shin to the side so you begin to bring it a little more parallel to the mat in front of you. Keep the chest open. So if you're going to stay on elbows forms, that's fine, but really press into the elbow forms and lift the chest. No rounding in, no chin to chest, no lounging back. You want to keep it active. All right, you can stay here. You feel you want to go deeper, then you come up onto the hands, straighten the arms, and scoot in a little closer. So maybe even that left heel gently pushes against the left glute. Keep the chest open, tall spine. And like we did laying on our backs, we're going to kind of rock that knee and shin side to side. For 2 more breaths in seated figure 4. One more. All right, uncross the right ankle, bring the foot back down to the mat. Again, they're about hips distance, knees point up. We're going to come back to that semi-reclining position on elbows forms. Lift up from the low back, open the chest, and then take the left leg up and cross the left ankle outside the right knee. You want to keep that foot flexed at all times to keep the knee safe. Again, this feels like enough. Stay here on the forearms, but not collapsing. Otherwise, start to walk up on the hands, scoot the butt in a little closer towards the heel, or walk the heel in a little closer towards the glute. Keep the spine tall, keep the foot flexed, and just a little bit at a time, begin to rock that knee and shin side to side here. One more breath. All right, uncross the ankle. Here is where you could sit on a folded blanket. Have a good thick fold to get a little height, or on a nice firm cushion, not a soft, fluffy marshmallow-like pillow. That won't do you much good. You don't need to sit on anything but sometimes it gives us a little more support and a little more height in some of these poses. All right, from here, we're gonna step the feet in close and we're gonna bring the soles of the feet to touch and begin to open the knees off to the sides. This is butterfly pose. And this again, another big opening for the outer hips. Also, knees, inner thighs, groin. See if you can scoot the heels in closer to the groin. Wrap the hands around the feet. Use the elbows to gently press the inner knees out, but just again, coaxing. I like that word, especially when it comes to something like hip openers, which again, you have to be very patient. It's not going to happen right away. It's going to be slow progress, very slow. Keep the spine tall here. Hold in this butterfly position. 2 more breaths. 1 more. All right, from here, you're going to keep that right knee bent, and you're going to slide the left leg to straight. You're going to try to bring the sole of the right foot, press it gently against the left inner thigh. Make sure the right knee is coming to the mat. If not, you'd get a block, or you could get like a towel or a t-shirt, something soft to wedge it under because you want that knee supported. So this is seated tree pose. All right, there's a big long Sanskrit name for it, which is Janu Shashasana A, if you're interested. But a lot of folks, a lot of teachers, students refer to this as seated tree because this is the same shape we took standing in tree pose. The difference here is that we're not standing, we're not balancing. You're going to angle yourself very slightly over the left leg. You want to flex that left foot to keep that leg really active. Lengthen through the spine, sit up tall, and then slowly keeping the chest open, you're going to start to walk the hands out. If you could keep that nice flat back, that nice open chest, you could start to bow the forehead down closer towards the shin. But if you find yourself start rounding here, lift up a little higher. So you want to make sure both sit bones are grounded, that right knee is grounded or supported, and that left leg is really strong and engaged here. We're here for 2 more breaths. So a big hip opener, right side, stretching hamstring. Can't forget about those on the left side. 1 more breath. Slowly walk yourself back up so the spine is tall. Lift the right knee. You're going to slide that leg to straight. And then you're going to bend the left knee, setting up for a tree pose or seated tree or Janu Shashasana on the left side. So again, maybe prop the left knee. If it's not grounding in one side, maybe you can ground the knee. The other side, no. So make those adjustments as you go along. Ankle slightly over the right leg. Sit up tall first to get as much length in the spine before we fold. And then slowly start to fold, keeping the chest open. Only go as far as feels good. Don't let the butt hike up off the mat. If you feel that happening, that's kind of a signal that you should consider getting a blanket under you next time. Maybe fold, maybe bow the forehead down without rounding the spine. Keep pushing out through the sole of the right foot. That's going to keep that right leg really active. 1 more breath. Slowly walk the hands until we're sitting up tall. And then from here, coming into a seated spinal twist, you're going to bend the right knee in, like you're going to come into a cross leg position. You're going to cross the left foot outside the right knee and ground that foot. So before we twist, take a little look around, make sure both sit bones are firmly supported. So if there's that left butt cheek isn't coming to the mat, again, there's your signal, get a folded blanket or firm cushion under you. You could also wiggle that right heel in a little closer and sit on the right heel. Once you have the sit bones nice and secure, you're going to wrap both arms around that left shin and hug the left thigh in close to the belly. Sit up tall. Keep the right arm wrapped around that knee and turn, twist to your left. Drop the left fingers behind you. And we are here for about 4 breaths. So with twists, I haven't done a lot of twists in this class, in this practice. You have to be mindful of the spine. So it should hopefully feel good. The spine should be warm for those forward folds and other poses we did, but you don't want to crank the spine. So if you start to feel something pinch or something tight in that low back, then you back out of the twist. Otherwise, holding here 1 more breath. And then slowly turn the chest forward and change sides. So bend the left shin in, like you're coming into a cross leg position. Kind of wiggle. You could pick up the right foot, round it outside the left knee. Again, taking that check, making sure both sit bones are grounded before we twist. Once they're secure, you hug that right thigh in a little closer towards the chest. You keep the left arm wrapped around that shin, knee, and then you turn over to your right, only to a degree. Again, where you don't feel any tightness, pull, pinch, pain, never pain in the low back, but do try to sit up tall. Even if you have to decrease the degree of the twist, you have to pull back a little. Do try to sit up tall through the spine. We're here for one more breath. And then we're going to turn forward, uncross the legs, and come lay on your back. So, meant to do this earlier and forgot, but we can do it now. We have time. No problem. Still time to do it. It's going to be a little bit of core work. Usually I do that about the midway part of the class. It's a little later than I normally do it, but this is a fairly gentle core exercise. And again, it's for the hips and for the shoulders. So we just did a couple poses ago, the seated tree pose, which kind of copied the standing tree pose. These crunches, these core work is going to be eagle crunches. So it's going to be the same body alignment as we did in standing eagle, except we're on our back and we don't have to worry about balancing. All right, come lay flat on your back. You're going to bend the knees into tabletop position. Let's take left knee over right. So cross it once. Maybe there's more space in the hips laying down, and you don't have to worry about balancing, falling over. Maybe laying down, you can take the double wrap where you can curl the toes around the ankle. When you have the legs wrapped up, lower the bottom foot down to the mat. Now, take the arms up to the sky. And again, it's opposite arm and leg. So we take right arm over, left arm under. Wrap those arms up again, press the palms to touch, and then lower the hands so the fingers tap the mat above the top of the head. Keep squeezing everything together, inner knees, inner thighs, inner ankles, shoulders, elbows, and then you're going to lift up and down. So as you lift any elbows towards the knee or thigh, if they don't touch, again, you're still getting that nice core work, adding in another bonus hip opener and a shoulder stretch. We have 3 more on this side. 2 more. 1 more this direction and hold. See if you can lift both shoulder blades up a little higher. See if you can walk the elbow up a little closer to the knee. Hold 1 more breath and then unwind everything. Come lay flat on the back just for a couple breaths. Walk the feet as wide as the mat. Let the knees point up. Ground the shoulder blades. And just very briefly let the knees drift a little side to side. Just for a moment, we'll repeat this after side 2, just to take a little break, reset in between sides. All right, let's do side 2 with those eagle crunches. Bring the weights back up to tabletop, 90-degree angle. This time, right knee over, left under. Maybe curl toes around the ankle, if that's there. Lower the bottom foot down. Legs up, arms up, rather. Take left arm over, right arm under, and then lower the fingers down. And then we come up again into round 2, side 2 of these eagle crunches. Still squeezing everything together. You want to hug in nice and close, working the core as well as the hips and the shoulders. We have 3 more and 2 more and just 1 more. Hold here. Lift up a little higher. See again if you can inch the elbow up a little closer towards the knee. Hold again. 1 more breath. And then once again, lower down across everything. Round the shoulder blades, feet wide, and let the knees again, once again, drift a little side to side, right and left. 1 more. All right, we're going to stay on the back. We're going to step the feet in, hips distance, and we're going to take a bridge variation. These are hip thrusts. So there'll be a little back bend with the bridge. We're not going to lift too high. We're also going to be continuing to work those outer hips, strengthen them. Let's start out. Bring the left knee to the chest.
Then press down through the palms and forearms, press down through that right foot. As you lift the hips up, you're going to straighten the left leg out, point the toes, and then lower down, rebend the knee, and lift back up, and keep going. So as you lower down, you bend the knee to the chest. As you lift up, it's kind of that thrusting motion. That's why we call these hip thrusts. And you point the toes. So the leg's kind of at a 45-degree angle. You're not bringing it all the way up to the sky. Okay, that's a different, that kind of gets a little more out of the hips and into the hamstrings. Let's find two more. One more. Rebend the knee, foot down, lower down briefly, take a breath there before side two. And then after we do side two, the hip thrust, we'll hold our bridge pose, and that's where you can use your block. So first bend the right knee to the chest, and then as you lift, straighten the leg, point the toe, and then lower down and the knee to the chest. So kind of really feel as you lift, pointing the toe, lengthening the leg, thrusting out with that hip, strengthening the hip here. Let's get just a few more on the side. How about two more? Lift up, point the toe. Final one. Rebend the knee, bring the foot down, and again, lower down briefly. Get your block. If you're going to use it, if you want it for full bridge pose, feet hips distance, knees point forward, lift the hips up. If you want to use the block, you wedge it under the low back, lower medium height. Roll the shoulders open, and take a few breaths here. So bridge, back bend, of course, we use this for many purposes. It's also working quads, knees, hamstrings, glutes, chest opener. It's also working the outer hips and the hip flexors. So here, for the last few breaths, if you want to increase the stretch in your hip flexors, all you have to do is bring the arms overhead by the ears and ground the backs of the palms. And you should feel a little more stretch and length in the front of the hips. One more breath. If you reach the arms overhead, slowly lower them back down to the sides. Lift the hips up, move your block to the side if you were using it, and come lower all the way back down to the mat. Hug the knees into the chest. From here, you're going to cross the left knee over the right. Flex the feet, lift the head and shoulders. See if you can grip the outer edges of the feet. If that's impossible, it's too far, hold the ankles or the low shins. When you have a hold of some part of the legs lower, head and shoulders down, ground the shoulder blades. Begin to lengthen the tailbone onto the mat, and at the same time begin to gently coax the feet away from each other. So you may not feel any movement here. Okay, this is what we refer to as an isometric movement, where it's teeny tiny movements, more the action of trying to get that movement going that has the benefit where you feel it. One more breath. All right, uncross the knees, hug both knees in briefly, and then take side two. You're going to cross right knee over left, flex the feet, get a grip on something, lower down when you have hold. And then again, beginning that, just looks almost like a little tiny tug of war with the feet, moving them opposite away from each other. This is a big hip opener. We call this cow face pose, reclined cow face pose. Oftentimes this is done, most often it's done in a seat. It is a deeper hip opener, a little more challenging for many people in a seat, which is why I often do it on the back. It's just a little easier. It's a deeper hip opener in the seat, but it could also tweak out the knees a little bit. It can also be a little unkind to the knees. So it's a little kinder to the body overall doing it reclined. All right, from here, uncross the knees, hug both knees in. Let's bump the hips to the left. Keep both knees bent, allow them to fall over to the right. Ground the shoulder blades as you're ready. And gently start to turn the right side of the ribs over to the left. Taking a few breaths in this reclined twist. Letting the spine unwind, letting the body start to recover, come down from all that good work we've done for the hips and the whole body. One more breath. Let it come onto the back. Hug the knees in. This time we bump the hips to the right. Knees fall. to the left. Press the shoulder blades into the ground and begin to turn left side of the chest now to the right. Easy twist. And watching to not over twist if it's not good for your back or your neck. One more breath. Come on to the back. Last pose. Same one we opened with. Hug both knees in. Flex the feet. Come back into happy baby. Hold on outer edges of feet or the ankles. Flex the feet. Ease both knees down towards the shoulders. Maybe rock a little side to side, left and right. Or just stay still. Take 2 more breaths here and happy baby. Last pose of this hip focused class. One more breath. All right, release out of that. And that is our hip class. Hopefully, again, helpful, some good things. You could, do this class once in a while, as often as you like, or you could just select out certain poses. That figure four pose, reclined figure four again, lizard pose. If I had to pick 2 ideal hip opening poses, it would probably be reclined figure four and lizard pose. Those are the biggest, for me, in my opinion, in my body, in my practice, hip openers, the ones that have the most effect, and the ones that most people can do to some degree. Especially with lizard, using props is super helpful. So, as always, reach out with any questions that you might have. But I hope it's helpful. And see you in another class very soon. Thank you for joining me. Bye-bye.